This custom epoxy fishing workbench was almost too big for me to make in my small shop slash garage. In this video, I'm going to show you how I did it, minus all the boring details. What's up, y'all? My name is Andy. This is Epeiuscustoms Garage. This table was a lot of fun to build. The customer let me get creative, which I always love that. I used some dado joinery. I did an epoxy coating on top. And I also got creative with my wood burner and did some different fish on the tabletop. Please remember to hit the like and subscribe button. And if you want notifications for future videos just like this one, then ring that bell. Also, all the stuff you see me using in the video, if you'd like to purchase it, I'll have links in the description. And it helps me out. I get a small cut, no extra cost to you. Please leave a comment. I would love to hear your feedback, comments, whatever you got for me. Enjoy the video.
I'm going to start out by measuring out the lengths of my board. In this case, they're going to be 82 inches total. So I'm going to do about 82 1/4, so I have room to trim them up later to the final dimension. Then using a straight edge, I'm going to line out my cut so I can get a square cut on these with my circular saw. And once I know that it's square and it's going to be a square cut, then I clamp down the board and I go ahead and make my cut. Just setting my feather board up so this way I can joint the boards and I'll have nice clean edges for my glue up. And I'm going to run each board through my table saw, get a nice clean edge. And I'm not going to lie, I had a lot of trouble doing this with these boards being so long. And I had to make an outfeed table. I'm not set up to do it very well. So this was difficult. They seem to have come out pretty good. I did a test fit up, everything looked nice and tight. So then I went ahead and figured out my grain pattern, and then I added the wood glue and did the final clamp up and let it set overnight. Using my miter saw, I'm gonna go ahead and cut the legs to a rough length. I didn't have the final length yet. Setting up the saw to make my dados or grooves, however you wanna call them. But I just went ahead and put the full stack on there so that I can make the grooves for the 2x4s. Here I'm setting the saw blade height. I want to make it exactly the height of the 2x4. That way it sets flush inside the 4x4 legs.
I did a test fit up for the leg joint. Just trying to get an idea of how I'm going to do this. I'm kind of doing, they're not half laps. I'm putting the full width of the 2x4 in there. But this is, imagine this being the front left leg. I think this is how I'm going to do it. So this would be the side. Of course, I'll push that in tighter. These are really tight right now. I'm probably going to have to loosen them up a little bit. But I think that's what I'm going to go with on the bottom. And then the bottom shelf will set here. For the top, I'm just going to use pocket holes.
This was a little tricky, laying out the dado grooves for the legs. I had to make sure I labeled them correctly and everything was going to be correct. Is it just me, or is there something very satisfying about making dado grooves? Maybe it is just me. Once I set up the distance from the fence to the edge of the saw blade, in this case it was 6 inches, I made all the cuts for each leg, and then I came back, readjusted the saw fence, and made more cuts. I used my practice piece to set the saw blade up where I wanted to make my cuts. This way it was the same and everything came out good. After I made my top and bottom cuts on all 4 leg pieces, I moved the fence out of the way, and now you just get to remove the material in the between. This is the easiest part, also the messiest. The customer for this job requested an edge on the back and 1 foot in, just to keep stuff from rolling off when they're using the workbench so it doesn't fall behind the table, which makes total sense. So this is it after I cut it up. I didn't show the process of it. It's pretty simple. Just 45-degree miters, and I beveled the ends of it just for aesthetics. After already cutting the 2x4s for the bottom stretchers, I get to put it all together. And this is actually really satisfying because whenever you use these grooves like this, everything lines up and it's already pre-squared, I guess you could say. This was fun. I just used glue glued it all up, clamped it, and then afterwards I used dowels. Just doing the side stretchers now. Gonna go ahead and add glue, clamp them up, and then once it's all dry, I'm gonna add 3/8 dowels. Wow, that came together quick. This is just a quick view before I painted it and what it kind of looked like. I didn't show every step of this. I cut the 2x4s the length, used pocket holes on the 2x4s on the top, and the braces on the bottom, used pocket holes with them as well. And you can see I used dowels, and the 2x4s are in the joints.
Morning, happy Easter. Quick update. All I have left is some sanding, caulking all the joints where I used fasteners, which is only going to be a few pocket holes. The rest is dowels and, I can't even think of the name of it. Groove joinery, whatever you want to call it. And then I got to cut out the shelf, paint it. That's all I got left. Last night I did stay up a little late and I did some wood burning. Customer said he'd like a couple fish on it maybe. It's kind of time consuming to do that. However, this is going to be a really cool piece and I'm glad to do it on this one. Stay tuned.
Well, the customer mentioned that they're going to be using this down on the coast for fishing and so forth, and gave me a few fish that they fish for, and they told me to get creative. Well, when you tell me to get creative, I'm going to get creative. So here I am transferring an image of a fish I got offline, and then I'm going to fill in the detail with my wood burner. After transferring the image, then is where you add all the detail. And if you look back at my past videos, you'll see other pyrography videos I've done, and I even show how to do it. This is how I normally break down sheet goods. I use a straight edge with my square, line it up once I get my saw in position and all that stuff. And then once it's square, I clamp it down. And then I use that as a guide to run my saw down. You get a perfectly straight edge. After cutting the 1/2-inch plywood shelf down to length and width and cutting the corners out for the legs, I had to put it underneath the table, and I ain't gonna lie, I had a lot of trouble with this. I made it a lot more difficult on myself than I needed to, and finally at the end I get it and I slide it on in. So have a little laugh, my expense. As far as securing the bottom shelf, I laid out the holes, I drilled them with a countersink bit, and using coated screws, I screwed them in with a little top coat of caulk on them. That was it. This workbench is going to go down to the coast, and the air down there is salty. Also, there's possible flooding in the garage it's going to be in, so I made sure to use caulk, plugged all my pocket holes with caulk, did the edges with caulk, and on the bottom of the legs, I put a good coat of caulk just to keep from any water absorbing into the legs and causing any future rot. Just an abundance of caution. Not going to bore you with painting, but here it is after I applied a coat of the marine grade paint. I also taped off the back edge and made it blue as well. I felt this was going to be a good contrast and leave the workbench as the natural wood color. All right, starting to look like a nice workbench. I haven't secured the top on it yet. Still got to do the epoxy pour, but this was just a quick little video snip of where I was at in the process, and we're getting pretty close to pouring epoxy. And I'm filling the knot holes with a pearl blue epoxy. I thought it would kind of be a cool little accent in this piece. Before I poured the epoxy, I made sure to put a layer of tape around the bottom edge, and this was so it'd make it a little easier getting rid of the drip marks that came over the top of the table. And here I'm just showing you removing that. And once that tape is removed, I take my orbital sander and I sand around the bottom, make it nice and smooth, no drip marks. I already have my pocket holes into the top rails, and now I'm just going to line up the table where it's all even, and I kept the majority of the overhang in the front. Using my magnetic wrist screw holder, I'm going to go ahead and screw in the pocket hole screws all the way around. The customer supplied me a really nice vise to attach to the workbench, and I'm going to do so by using some 3/8 stainless steel hex bolts with flat washers and lock washers, and of course a nut.
I really think this turned out great. I hope y'all enjoyed watching it. The customer seemed to really like it when they picked it up, which always makes me feel good. Thank you again for trusting me to build this. I appreciate it, and I really enjoyed making it. This project was only big for me because of my small limited space. For somebody with a full-size shop, I'm sure this is no big deal and an easy one to build, but for me it was a big deal. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Please remember to leave a comment and let me know if this was worth the watch. Stay safe, have fun, Andy out.